Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome back. It's Wednesday, January 21st here. Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined by Matthew Betz and Mike Wright.
Fresh
Hello.
off an awesome national championship game for anybody that is a college football fan. That was a very, very fun game to watch. Honestly, the last 2.5 weeks of football, regardless of pro or college, amazing. So great time of year to be a NFL fan, a college fan. And I always love when the college season ends and NFL finally slows down for us. We talked about it last week. Kyle is in prospect mode officially. You had your prospect primer come out. What was that, last week, Kyle? Awesome read for everybody out there getting ready to make the transition as we are from NFL to college.
It feels like we just simmed the actual season, though. Like when you see Indiana as national champion, and as, if you followed college football for a long time, then it just feels off. It feels different. And yet, we do have a player that's going to go number one overall that we're going to talk a lot about. And he's a character. He's a funny dude when he starts talking.
He's a character. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, we were talking before the show. Do you think other people, they're either going to go one or two ways? Like, I love this guy's vibe. I love the way that he wants to fight. Or is he too nice of a guy and it's I want someone that's going to hit me in the face?
I don't have a lot of exposure to him, so I'm newer, so I'm coming in fresh here, and it's really based off of a couple of games watching him play, but then the two interactions at the end of the game. You had the one game before the national championship, he wins. He is very much aware that he's on TV. He's censoring himself. He's using words like flipping. And you're like, okay, well, is this guy a goober? Is this guy just a big-time goober? Turns that all upside down, because the next time he gets on the mic, it's hot. He says a word we don't say on this podcast. And you're like, okay. So I wondered, maybe he just, he's like, oh, my parents are watching, He's like, I don't want to say swear words in front of my parents, but
it feels a lot like Phillip Rivers mic'd up.
Right.
With Phillip Rivers, he's like, heck yeah, frick
yeah.
He doesn't actually say words.
And this is not a take of you got to use curse words to be cool. It's just, no, hey, you could be all over the place. Like Phillip Rivers, cool. Keeps it clean. So I think I'm okay. I can't wait to dive in more and watch him, because what he did was incredible. The run that they went on, undefeated champions from essentially nowhere. There'll be a lot of figuring out where the credit truly belongs, but we won't know that until the next couple years go. But he looks the part. We like that he's big. Not that we are short kings. It's much harder for them. It's much harder for guys like Bryce Young and Kyler Murray. Every once in a while you got a Drew Brees, who they're just, and Russell Wilson for most of his career. It's not that it can't work out, but when a guy is 6'5", you feel safer. You know what I mean? There's a higher chance that this guy can hit a ceiling. He'll go to the Raiders more likely than not, which that's going to be its whole situation of, can that team figure things. They don't have a coach yet, do they? Am I misremembering?
They do not.
Not yet.
I mean, they got an uphill climb here. It's going to be someone brand new probably. But I'm in. As of right now, I think I'm in on him being a fine NFL quarterback. Fantasy is very different, though.
Yes. And I think that's the conversation we will have over the next couple of months, is with this as the number one overall pick and the cast of characters around him, Genty, Bowers, Jack Besh, year 2 breakout, come on. Is he going to run enough?
It was turning around, Kyle. It was turning around there for a while.
Okay, one of my friends the other day was telling me all the reasons why that was just, Jack Besh is the dumbest thing ever, and then I just flipped it on him. I said, We got a lot of upside here. Play caller, new quarterback. Things are looking up for our guy.
Jacoby Myers gets traded, and then eventually you know what? We got weeks 13 through 16. Guys, no fewer than 3 targets a game. Absolute monster.
The haters will say it's fake. Come on.
The haters will say it's way too low, and they will be correct.
They definitely will be. So,
but at least we were at least moving in a positive direction, and then he got hurt.
We will have all of these prospects, all of the teams. Betz is writing them up right now in our team opportunity report. That's part of the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. So the Dynasty Pass for 2026 is already underway. We're putting together our production profiles, which I'm excited to turn that conversation today because the production profiles that we looked at last year for tight ends were spot on for how they produced in the NFL. Like, it was one of those things that if you just ignored draft capital and you just said, how did this player perform in college? How are they targeted? What was their dominator rating? You would have had a pretty good idea of how they performed in the NFL. So all of that is included in the Dynasty Pass, which will launch on Super Bowl Sunday. I did have a quick question for us because we're about to be in the season. You know, depending on your league, your trades are turned on. Maybe your league does it after the NFL playoffs. But Mike is starting to put together a list behind the scenes of his early trade targets list in the Dynasty Pass that we update all throughout the offseason. It's usually players that we would say, this player might be a little undervalued in your league relative to the trade cost. There might be an upside case that somebody isn't considering, or there's opportunity to the offense that could open up more in the future. So I wanted to give us a chance to list a couple of dirtier names.
Oh, yes. It is
at this point. I think I have the least dirty name.
No, yours is not nasty at all. Yours is, but it's still a great name to talk about.
All right, I'll throw mine out first. Is Baishal Tootin, who just finished his rookie year with Jacksonville Jaguars. Tootin, when we profiled him out of Virginia Tech, the things that we saw was he breaks tackles at an elite level. And when you saw that this year, he did that. He was 11th among 55 qualified running backs. 55! He was 5th in rush success rate, 5th in percentage of yards after contact. In fact, I found the statistic, and I think it gave me a picture of like what kind of running back he is. There were only 4 running backs in the NFL this year that had success rate above 57% against in zone and man gap schemes. It was Kyron, Chris Rodriguez, a.k.a. Crod.
Ooh, Crod.
Samaje Perine, the pain bot, and Baishal Tootin. So all 4 of those runners, what they're not great at is explosive runs. Like these like 15-plus yard runs. That's never been Kyron's thing. But Kyron led the league in rush success rate this year. He was incredible in terms of getting what you needed per down. And it seemed like they trusted Tootin around the goal line. I had to make sure this is correct. But Travis Etienne had 26 carries inside the 10-yard line. 26. That led to only 4 rushing touchdowns. Tootin had 8 and turned it into 5 rushing touchdowns. So he had more rushing touchdowns inside the 10 than Etienne. Inside the 10.
Do you have the 5 numbers?
Yeah, the 5 was Tootin had 5 inside the 5. Etienne had 2 inside the 5.
Yeah, I mean,
so
Etienne, at least the way I look at Etienne, is not he's a space running back to me. Like, and which he's very, very good at that. But when it came to the goal line stuff, like that's where, beginning of the season, you got to rewind a long ways. Like, I was on the Tank Bigsby side. Very incorrect, as they traded him off, and Travis Etienne had himself a pretty good year, a year that's definitely going to earn him a lot of money. But Tootin is fascinating of watching their final performance, on the unfortunate exit in the wild card round. You had that drive where Baishal Tootin was just gouging, and the Bills couldn't stop anything. And then it felt like Cohen got he a little bit outsmarted himself, in my opinion. That was and like not even just hindsight. Watching the game, you're like, why? What are we doing? If Lawrence is not playing elite football, and your running backs are ripping it off, so I don't know why we're not running a little bit more. But Tootin, especially in that game, and it will come down to Travis Etienne. You're like, this is speculative at this point because free agency hasn't hit. But that's kind of, you got to make your decisions of how do you play Dynasty fantasy football, right? Do you buy once the news is solidified? Because once the news is solidified, prices are either way up or way down. Or do you live in the murky waters of calling your shot of, is Travis Etienne going to be on the Jaguars next year? Because if he's not, I mean, at least right now, the value of Bashal Tootin will go way up. He will be the presumed starter. Now, this year is weird, Kyle. I feel like I've posted a few times in our Slack of like late round running backs this year. I don't know if this is the most successful year ever for day 3 running backs, but we had a handful of guys who were really contributing to teams. And Tootin was in that list of he's a day 3 running back. So you still have that. You'll have slight fear that he's going to get replaced. But I think we saw enough of Bashal Tootin that he should be the primary guy. Everyone's at a timeshare these days. That's fine. But I think he'll be the leader of the timeshare and gives us those high-value touches, that goal line work.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it in terms of like the trade for piece of this right now is like we're saying there's a, I don't want to say pretty good chance, but there is a chance his value at the end of March, we look back and it's infinitely higher than it is now because if Travis Etienne leaves, if they don't sign one of the high-profile backs in free agency, then entering the NFL draft, and that's another hurdle you have to get over, but entering the NFL draft, Tootin will look incredible from the depth chart standpoint. I think the worst case scenario here is like you trade for him and he ends up as like the 1B, the backup, the change of pace guy that still has a role. So for me, I'm fine investing in Tootin just because there's some running backs you trade for and you're like, this could be super sketchy. Like this could be a 0. I feel so confident Tootin is not going to be a 0. So even if you don't get max return on your investment here, you're probably still getting a valuable piece of the Jaguars offense, which obviously is a team we want to invest in right now. And then the upside case is he is the guy next year. So I'm definitely in on him. I think he's got the juice. It's kind of weird that like he fits into this bucket with Kyron and Crod and P. Ryan because those guys don't profile as like explosive running backs. They're all kind of volume-based plotters. But if you go back to Virginia Tech in his final season, he was among the league leaders in breakaway rush rate. Like I think this guy's got the juice. He was ahead of Travion in that metric, according to PFF, ahead of Genty, RJ Harvey. So I think he's got the juice if he has the touches to go with it. So given the goal line role, given the ability to contribute in the pass game a little bit too, I think Bashal Tootin's one of my favorite players to trade for during this part of the Dynasty offseason.
Yeah, it seemed like he did what they asked him to do as a 4th-round rookie running back. Only 6% of his runs went for 10-plus yards, but we talk about that all the time. Like those things can flip in a year where it goes to 8%, 9%, and it changes a little bit. So I think right now I'm willing to invest, and by that, I'm willing to throw a late 2nd-round pick and see if somebody will bite, or include him in a trade and just say like, hey, I could be wrong, but I think you mentioned it, Betz. Like at worst, he's still part of a committee, and I think he can be valuable.
Yep, I agree. I'll throw out another running back. I guess we're all trading for running backs now. It's that time of year.
It's the easier way to see a path forward. Like
For sure.
projecting wide receiver depth charts at this point is even harder than the running back spot.
For sure, which is why we always say, bet on talent at wide receiver. And not that you shouldn't bet on talent at running back, but also there's more opportunity-based stuff here. Speaking of opportunity in Carolina, who knows, man? Who knows what's going to happen with Jonathan Brooks? But I think there's a window right now to find out for a very reasonable price. I looked at Keep Trade Cut to kind of just get a sense of where is he at in the market. Consensus was about RB53. That's based off startup cost. Now, if somebody has Jonathan Brooks on their roster, they probably are aware of what's happening in Carolina if you're in a pretty competitive league, understanding, look, Rico, 2 pumps, Dowdle, who we love on this show, is a free agent. He came out immediately after their loss to the Rams and kind of said, I would love to go somewhere where I can be the bell cow, essentially, is I'm paraphrasing what he said. So assuming he leaves, then you have a depth chart with Chuba, who basically lost his job this year to Rico, and Jonathan Brooks. And the thing with Brooks is we don't know how good he is or isn't in the NFL because he's barely played, right? Had the ACL coming out of Texas, then had the second ACL tear, and now it's just complete unknown. So I'm not going out and like aggressively targeting Brooks as like a primary guy that I'm giving up assets for, but I think he's one of those fun guys to include as part of a package trade. I feel like if you go up to somebody else in your league that has him and you're like, hey, what's the cost for Jonathan Brooks in these days? Somebody's going to be like, wait a minute, what do you know? So I feel like you have to almost kind of include him as a second piece of a trade, but there's an opportunity here where he and Chuba are kind of the 1-2 punch in Carolina next year. And obviously we know with Dave Canales, they want to run the football. So we'll see on Jonathan Brooks' health throughout the season and where he's at here. But coming out of Texas, I think we're pretty big fans of his talent.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting acquisition. Mine are nasty. And this first one, I can't even believe I'm sharing it with you guys.
I am shocked that you would ever type this person's name anywhere.
Because I'm a man of the people. And even when I don't like a player, I will admit when the situation is good and that player still does have talent. This one is super speculation because he didn't play at all this year, and we're not 100% sure why because the Houston Texans won't give us any information. But don't forget that Joe Mixon is on that roster. Now, I went and looked, and there was actually some recent news that's being posted as of like yesterday. This is from a Brian Jones article who says, the quote from D'Amico Ryans when asked about Joe Mixon's health, it was, quote, no clarity. So that's not going to help this. But the reason I'm even bringing this up is because while Woody Marks had proved he belongs on an NFL field, Woody Marks also was getting hurt on like every single game. He, to me, of the day three producers is like, I would not ink in right now that Woody Marks is the starter for the Houston Texans next year. He could be one of the day three guys that had a good season, and then they're like, hey, thanks, man, but we're gonna go to someone else. Woody Marks was not the plan. Joe Mixon was the plan. Nick Chubb was the backup plan. And it was like, well, those plans fell through, so we'll go to Woody Marks. And Woody Marks did produce with his opportunity. But when I'm looking at it, if Joe Mixon is actually available again, that's a big if, because everything, it's so weird, guys. It's so weird what's going on. But if he comes back, Joe Mixon, I bet, goes right back into being a bell cow for the Houston Texans, which is a valuable role. And then the second name I'll throw out, which is not as nasty, this is depth chart chasing. You bet you're sharing some Woody Marks numbers with us. You want to share those?
Well, they're not very good. Yeah, he was pretty much a volume back down the stretch based off necessity, and the numbers from a peripheral metric standpoint were not very good. Now, the rushing attack in Houston in totality was not super efficient with the O-line concerns and some of that stuff, but yeah, he was 40th out of 44 running backs, qualified running backs in yards per carry, 33rd in explosive rate, 34th in success rate, 44th in missed tackle rate. You know, he's not really a super talented runner, I think is kind of the consensus.
Leaves
and
room.
So he is one of those guys that I certainly am trying to trade away. And I agree with what you're saying, where it's like they look at this depth chart, they rewind the tape from the season, and they're like, can we find an upgrade running back? Probably, whether it's in free agency or the draft. So he feels like a guy that his window to sell in Dynasty is closing somewhat quickly as the months go on.
Yeah, I'd be willing
Fun
to say
fact.
That. Go ahead, Kyle.
This weekend, I was at my cousin's wedding, and of all the players that people could have talked to me about, I had someone come up to me like, hey, so what do you think about Woody Marks? Because this person went to Mississippi State. And so we ended up having a 20-minute conversation about Woody Marks, how he fits in the NFL. It was one of those things like, I did not see this coming.
That's
but
fun.
There you go.
The other one,
what was that? What was your friend's takeaway? Was it a yes or no?
He saw him in college and thought he was better than what he could be in the pros. Okay. That was his unbiased and yet very biased thought.
So depth chart chasing. Breece Hall is certain to leave the New York Jets and go get himself a big bag of money. Braylon Allen's the name I'm going to bring up, not because I'm sure that he's going to be a great player, or
because he's 18,
or sure that he will be, in fact, the starter. But we had a pretty small snapshot at the beginning of the year before he sprained his MCL, I believe. Betz?
He had to have surgery on it, yes.
So that he did have a full surgical repair. But in terms of stuff that could happen to your L's, is that one brutal, or we would expect him to be ready to go?
So it's not common to have your MCL repair because the blood supply there is so good, but at times they do repair it when there's additional damage, usually to the meniscus on the same side of the knee. But relative to, like what we've seen in the past from guys like Javonte and some of those like ACL ++ types things, this is certainly not on that spectrum. So I do expect him to be ready for training camp and enter the season close to 100%.
but they were using both guys, like Braylon Allen and Breece Hall. There was clearly a plan of we're going to have some thunder and some lightning with these two guys. So it's just remember the Jets are going to be a dumpster fire next year, but they could also be one of the shocking teams that the way that they've talked about quarterback is like they might go trade for Kyler. And I don't know if Kyler Murray is truly the answer, but, at least, hey, we have some hope here. So I think that the Jets are interesting to watch this offseason, how they handle it, if they just fully pack it in and say, we'll see you guys in 2027, or do they start making some moves and building right now? And Braylon Allen, at least right now, would be the starter, in my estimation.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Are they a serious organization?
Not usually.
Yeah, no.
I was thinking back, and this is not probably totally fair to Robert Saleh because he just got the Titans job, but I was thinking back to like what I remember of him as the Jets coach, and it almost felt like when they signed Rodgers for that, like, oh, this is the only thing we need, we're just missing Rodgers season that obviously ended in disaster. It almost felt like there was like no coaching happening. Like when you watch him on the sideline, he was just like, we did it. Like this is it. So he seems like a guy that I don't have a ton of confidence in as like a head coach, but when you watch him on the sideline in San Francisco and like his defensive players,
he's a good DC.
Him.
Yeah,
very, very good. So that was just my little thing about the Jets and their serious organization, because it's like just slap a band-aid, like get Rodgers, problem solved. And well, they're not solving problems. So I would say they're more on the unserious side, Kyle, than the serious side. I mean, Tanner Engstrand, man.
I want them to be good. It's not like I have no ill will towards an organization or the people. It's just you look back and you're looking at all these head coaching changes. You're like, man, the Bills, the Ravens, the Steelers. Like these are the franchises in the NFL that have this staying power. And the Jets are like, I like what we got. I like what we got going on over here. Oh man, they're trying.
I think they're trying.
They are trying to do exactly what they've done for years and years. Yeah. Let's take a quick break. We'll talk about some rookie tight ends. Just like what we did for the rookie quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers, we're going to spend an episode talking about the tight ends because really, I would say this might have been the best all-around year for rookie tight ends we've seen in a while, so let's get into it.
Hey, rookie. Welcome to the NFL.
We're going to go by fantasy finish in the way that we're going to talk about these rookie tight ends. So Harold Fannin, we're going to talk about Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, talk about some Oronde Gadsden, maybe throw in a little bit of talk of Gunnar Helm, or maybe mention Mason Taylor.
Maybe.
Do we have to?
He's a Footy Award winner.
He is.
That's true. They'll never be able to take that away from him.
And he will also never get it in the mail. It will be there forever.
I found a stat where he led all tight ends.
Oh. Yeah.
Footy Awards?
Yeah. In that one, he was put in motion on the highest percentage of his routes of all tight ends.
Okay.
Sounds nice.
Hey.
But he didn't do much with it. They're like, let's send Mason on. And it didn't really matter. But
getting that cardio.
That's one of the conversations that I think I want to start with is when we profile these players a year ago, when we looked at them, we did a whole episode on this podcast looking at the prospects and where they get drafted, their production profile. This isn't to dunk on Mason Taylor. It's just for the game that we play, the things that we look at, what Betz wants to dunk. It was more of like, how does this translate to the game we play? Right? Like, was that where a lot of the disconnect was and watching the film?
Yeah. I either want to see Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Mr. Loveland, like just dominating. Absolutely dominating people. Trey McBride. I want to see domination from being a good football player and you can physically do stuff. Like, or you're Harold Fannin and you're just getting fed the ball all the time and you're making guys miss, right? It's like Warren will go through you Fanning will make you miss, and it's like in the tape, Mason Taylor will do none of the above. So that was the issue of like in like Zach Ertz archetypes. They can be very, very successful if they are put in a position for a ton of volume, which I won't rule that out. Like I like talking crap about Mason Taylor because the bit is fun and it has gone on all year long. There's a world where Mason Taylor's okay, and so I won't rule that out. But he is right now. We have our big three from this year.
I thought it was interesting, like just kind of thinking back to each of these players' seasons, which we'll obviously talk about each of these guys in detail. I feel like they all kind of did what we thought they would do. Like people, like when the NFL draft came, there was a lot of debate. Is it Loveland?
One of them did
Warren?
What we thought he was going to do, Betz.
Well, of course, Mike. I mean, look at that.
He didn't do what Kyle thought he was going to do.
Kyle, he didn't sleep a wink last night. They all did what we thought.
No, I got to talk about Colston Loveland.
I can't wait to talk about it.
Like Loveland was like the move tight end, super athletic, insanely good pass catcher. Okay, we saw that. Tyler Warren is like insanely unique and he can do all these different things. He's insane after the catch.
Dog.
Okay, he did that. Dog, breaks tackles. Like, and then you have all these things with Fannin. It's like, well, we don't really know where he's going to fit, but he's like a fun player who's really efficient. What if they just get the ball in his hands? Good things probably will happen. That happened, right? Like all these things that you kind of thought entering the NFL draft cycle and then the regular season, to some degree, all happened for these guys based off their archetype. So it was a really good year, I thought, for rookie tight ends. Then you do have some fun late round kind of sleeper types in like Helm and Taylor and Ferguson. So it feels like the changing of the guard in some ways where like these older veteran tight ends are kind of slowly approaching not where they were. Obviously, Kelsey we'll see, and Kittle's coming off the Achilles, and you have all these guys that are kind of slowly aging out. And now this is like the new crop of like the next elite tight ends. I think some of these guys are insanely valuable in Dynasty.
Yeah, we don't have to hang on to like, oh God, what is TJ Hawkinson anymore?
Right.
Oh,
because that's
dude. The relief that fantasy football players should have to be like, dude, I can let it go. I don't have to keep holding on to what Hawkinson is supposed to be. And so that's great. That's great news for everybody.
All right, let's start with Harold Fannin. The Browns took him 67th overall in the third round. He finished as the tight end 5, and he didn't play week 18. So I didn't realize it was that high of a finish. 107 targets, 72 for 731 and 6. He also added a rushing touchdown.
And the
pretty good stuff.
He had to deal with, man.
Yeah.
Like
Flacco.
Like he
Shadur,
got bad Flacco. Then
really, he got good Dylan Gabriel.
He got good. Yeah, we got I think the best that we
him.
could see of Dylan Gabriel. I mean, and then Shadur was just it was bad. Like the Sanders dialogue is tough of can he improve? TBD, but I can tell you what we saw, and it was not a good quarterback.
Yes. The thing going into the season with Fannin is this is a third round pick, so it was later than, like Terrence Ferguson or Mason Taylor. And then Njoku was there, so it was kind of one of those conversations of figuring out like, okay, is he kind of slowly brought along? In week 1, he had 9 targets. He had a rush attempt. It was very clear early on, like this guy can earn targets. And that was part of the production profile at Bowling Green. It was like this dude, any way they can, they want to give him opportunities. He ended up second among all tight ends in targets per out run. That's really awesome. 24% of Cleveland's receiving yards. And then all the stuff we talked about at forced missed tackles. I was looking back at our notes last year. We were saying this is like a boxer setting up his punches on the field when he gets the ball. So it was nice that all the things we saw in production profile in the film actually showed up in Cleveland.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that first week too was kind of the signal of like, dude, Fannin might be really good.
Yeah.
Because it's like rookie tight ends, it's like the common thing in Dynasty is like, it takes a little bit of time, and that's kind of maybe not the norm anymore because you do have these talented rookies coming in. But like for a third round rookie tight end from an NFL draft standpoint, coming in and then being like the chess piece in the offense where it's like, dude, he just got a carry. Oh, they're lining him up in the backfield. Oh, now he's in line. Now he's out wide. That stuff just does not happen for round 3 rookie tight ends in week 1. So that's an extremely bullish signal. I will say it's encouraging, and also like I'm a little terrified for this next year. I think Kevin Stefanski is a very good scheming play caller with tight ends specifically. So I'm not sure what this looks like with the new regime. We don't even really know who's going to be here in Cleveland for the next play calling stint, who's playing quarterback, all those question marks. But he is a player that I feel like if you can use him creatively, figure out how to get him the ball in space, good things happen. And just from like a value standpoint, when you're thinking about Dynasty, what he just did, knowing David Njoku is the pending free agent, assuming David Njoku signs elsewhere, his ADP in the next 3+ months will be skyrocketing as well. So if you believe in Harold Fannin, now is the time. Don't wait any longer, because if we get that news on Njoku gone, certainly his value will spike.
Mike, any final thoughts on Fannin?
Of just he was such a unique cat, just a different guy. Like he's a tight end, but he doesn't move like a tight end. He doesn't move like he's too big to be a wide receiver and do the things that they did. But when he got, I can just imagine when he got into camp, and you're like, it's like, I mean, who are on the Browns, right? The wide receivers, and then Fannin gets out there and he starts moving, and you're like, ooh, well, Fannon's our best player. I like it. It was nice for them to at least admit it really, really quick that it's like Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's not that guy, man. Cedric Tillman is a fun boundary wide receiver, but he's not going to take over. And so it was nice to see. But again, I agree, Betz, that if you're in, you should probably get in now, because I think things are going to go up. But he's a dangerous player, like with the instability everywhere going into next year. I think it's dangerous, and really hoping that it's not just the one. Oh, hey guys, you remember the Harold Fannin? Remember that rookie year, best year of his career? That would be a shame for what we saw on film.
The best part is, among this group we're going to talk about, I keep thinking that he's just a much older prospect that just got a ton of production. Like, he's 21 and a half years old. So he's still super young. There is a lot of volatility with this team. Even Judkins getting injured. But it's rare to see a rookie, much less a rookie tight end, lead the team in first read targets. That's just not normal. So he was the dude. Most receptions ever for a tight end before turning 22 years old. So more than Kyle Pitts' rookie year, most receptions ever. And between Warren, Loveland, and Fannin, he's going to be the cheapest right now if you want to acquire them. Is that what you're saying, Betz?
Yeah, but he's also the scariest.
I agree with that. Yeah. He's a really polarizing guy, because there's so many positives when you look at kind of his entire season and everything coming out of Bowling Green. But there's also a part of me that's like, some people play this game with, they just draft the guys they really like and they hold on to them for a while. And like, that's totally fine. There's no right or wrong way to play Dynasty. There's other people who love to play it as like a market-based game, right? Where it's like sell high, buy low, all these things. I would not be surprised if in like redraft circles, Harold Fannin's price gets to that like tight end 4, 5-ish range. And you look back in August and you're like, that feels pricey. And then we get to the end of the season, you're like, that was pricey. For just the overall kind of systemic concerns. So he's a talented player, no doubt. But I wouldn't be surprised if his career is not like a straight line of improvement forever. Like, it might kind of have some ups and downs along the way. So even though you might need to invest highly in him to get him now, I wouldn't be shocked if in a year we're like, it was a little down season in Cleveland again. Fannin regressed a bit. The scheme just didn't fit him, stuff like that. I could very well see those conversations happening. I could also see him just being like, oh, he's just that good. And he's been a very valuable piece. So if you got him in like the third round of some of your rookie drafts, which I know a lot of people did, I have got him a bunch of places because he was so cheap. I'm at least willing to listen to offers in my league if somebody is interested in, in just kind of turning that over and improving on your stock there. But yeah, really fun player, really talented. I think what we're all saying is he's good, but there's some systemic concerns around the situation for sure.
In our Dino Junior League that the three of us all play in, I had a decision in the third round. I think it was 305, 306. Between Mason Taylor and Harold Fannin. And I went back and forth like, oh God, my heart says I would never want to pick Mason Taylor. But he was picked in the second round. And I went back and forth. And where did I end up? Where did my heart go?
I don't even remember.
I took Fannin.
Okay.
Because I was after you and I was praying you took Mason Taylor. And then I got on the clock and I said, hey everyone, this pick cannot be more for sale. Come get the Jets starting tight end. And I did flip him.
Do you think that Fannin is worth a late first-round pick?
That's what it's going to cost, I think.
Okay, that's kind of where I had him pegged
That's
as
pricey.
It's pricey, but would you say that in 2026, when you stat out your projections, Mike, for the Browns, he's probably going to have 100 targets and maybe be first or second on the team in target share?
Yeah, I would imagine that'll be the case. But where's the target pie? Who's baking in
It's
Cleveland?
probably doo-doo. It was doo-doo this year, too.
I mean, they're talking about Watson again, which is yeah. Good thing he was really, really good before the Achilles injury.
I feel like we should, I have stats that come up comparing Watson and his Texans years. We should, he should have a different name for the last 5 years.
Well, yeah, he became Voldemort for the Cleveland Browns.
He should get it changed. Let's go to Tyler Warren. He finished as tight end 7, 17 games, 112 targets. He went 76 for 817 and 4. He also had a rushing touchdown. Here are all the rookie tight ends that have had 75 catches and over 800 receiving yards in the same season. Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta, Tyler Warren. End of list. So the worst part about Warren is that through the first 7 weeks, you thought, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the dude. And then post Danny Dimes, it was not great. He averaged 27 receiving yards per game after Daniel Jones was injured. He was kind of what they drafted him to be, this chess piece, this guy yards after the catch. I feel like he did exactly what we said he was going to do. It's just the end of the season was so bad that you're kind of trying to figure out what he is in the future. So Betz, I know you're a Penn State guy. I know you saw him function in that offense, and yet going to the pros, it felt like he was still like the number one read on a ton of plays.
Yeah, I feel like it's so unfair to both players. I know because it's going to always be the conversation. Loveland, Warren, they were the 1A, 1B in this class. Who do you prefer?
The answer is yes.
All those things. I agree. The answer is yes, but Loveland's the right answer. But the unfortunate thing is he got off to such a hot start. We talked about this with Ibuka, right? A show or two ago.
Yeah,
where it's
I was thinking back to we looked back at rookie drafts in whatever week. It was like week 6 or I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, if the draft were happening today, what does it look like? And it's like Ibuka's the 101. And then I think I took Warren at like 4 or 5.
That sounds right.
And I that feels not as great right now, but honestly, I think that if you have Tyler Warren, do not be disappointed at all in the second half. I guess don't carry that disappointment forward. It sucked that it happened, but to have a player at his age, year one, come out and truly dominate for half a season before the entire Colts season fell apart. Like, Jonathan Taylor was not anywhere close to what he was for fantasy football. If you were on that ride, just the whole team, it went under. So I would be very, very optimistic for Tyler Warren. I saw some recent chatter that the team, I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but there's now whispers of does this team need to move Michael Pittman? And you're like, I assume that's so we can get some cash to get Alec Pierce back because he's such a unique weapon for the scheme. Like, Michael Pittman can't do what Alec Pierce does, but like if Pittman is moved and they keep Pierce, holy Warren targets, man. Like, Warren and Pittman are kind of competing in the same area of the field. If Pittman is no longer there to demand targets, Tyler Warren might see 27% of the targets.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And he was like, it's so easy to, like you said, just kind of look back at like the last month or two where it was just not good. I mean, quite frankly, 3.5 catches, 26 yards a game. It's irrelevant in fantasy. But if you look at what happened before Daniel Jones got hurt, Stu was a legit difference maker at tight end. And we just talked about that with Warren. Guys don't come in as rookies and just dominate right away. Tyler Warren did. He's very, very good, specifically with the ball in his hands. And I trust Shane Steichen to continue to find ways to get him the ball in his hands, especially if there's no Pittman for the RPO type stuff that he gets. I think Tyler Warren could have a monster year 2 here for sure. Definitely showed everything you're looking for with him. And obviously, Loveland's the hotness right now, but don't forget about Tyler Warren. He's an awesome player.
And so after the bye week, it was 7 targets, 4, 6, 6, 9, 5, and 8. I mean, this was let me get them. It was a 21. He still had a 21% target share after the bye week. So this was the quality of his targets went away. It evaporated. The volume was still there. And in fantasy football, that's the thing that we lay our head on at night is like, oh, I've got some volume. So as long as that didn't disappear, just the efficiency and quality, that ebbs and flows. But you got to have that locked in volume, and it's going to be great for Warren.
One of the things that I tracked with this group was how did they score their fantasy points per quarter? And if you were a Tyler Warren manager, you felt the first half was gold, and then what happened in the second half of games? Because 62% of his fantasy points came in the first half of games. He was dominating in the first quarter. There was a period where he was leading all tight ends, even Trey McBride in first quarter fantasy points. Then it evaporated. In a second, we'll talk about Loveland, who's the exact opposite of him. So they're very different players in that regard, how they scored. My last question for Warren is, and this is sad that I'm putting him here, does he go the TJ Hawkinson route where he's good
Kyle,
for like 5 years?
Don't you dare.
Or does he join the elites? Because like TJ Hawkinson, in terms of value, was always kind of seen as a top 5 tight end for a long time. Value-wise, season-wise, he had a couple of really good years, but then it kind of trailed off, and you're like, oh, it's TJ Hawkinson. Or does he join the elite? Because his profile's kind of always matched Trey McBride as like the bigger tight end that's the chain mover. So if you were to bet right now, I feel like I'm betting more that he'll just be in that Hawkinson really good but not elite group.
Oh, God.
I'm just putting it based on the math, man.
No,
Have you seen the right side of
Betz,
this?
you know what he's saying.
The answer's Fannin. We know
he's
that.
saying the answer is Colston Loveland. He's just not saying it out loud.
Welcome, Kyle. Welcome to the right side of the argument.
It took
Colston Loveland is not Trey McBride. No.
It took till year 4 for TJ Hawkinson to surpass 800 receiving yards. And that is what Tyler Warren did in his rookie year. So I will currently not stand for that.
I agree.
Okay. But my other question was, does he become elite?
I lean that he does, yeah.
I think so too. I think when you have a tight end that's drafted where he is, and I know a lot of people had the same argument with Hawkinson, right? And Eric Ebron's of the world and yada yada. But the way that he fits, I think, in today's game is perfect, especially with his current situation and play caller, that you worry about these guys that are like pretty volume dependent. Like obviously we love volume in fantasy, but like with Zach Ertz over the years and Hawkinson and some of these guys, like you need 7, 8 targets to even be relevant for like a tight end 12 weekly score. Warren is such a good player with the ball in his hands that if for some reason it's not a super high target game, he can still get there in fantasy. They'll still use him around the goal line, all those sort of things. So I do believe he will level up, and I think he will be an awesome, awesome player to have for the next handful of seasons.
If you go by the kind of the dogma belief approach, like targets are earned. You have to be out there getting open, hitting your assignments, getting the trust of the quarterback, and then you're going to get targets. Like Tyler Warren, year 1 was 21% of the targets. Hawkinson didn't see more than 20% of the targets till year 3. Like Warren was out there getting it done immediately, and that I'm going to believe in it.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we will talk some Colston Loveland. All right, we are back talking about probably the hottest name when it comes to tight ends.
Mr. Loveland.
Mr. Loveland.
I mean, let's have the conversation, boys. Let's talk about it. Because, yes, people want to paint a Warren or Loveland, and, you know, that's fine. I have both of them, so I like both of them. Loveland for the first 7-8 weeks of the season. What was y'all's impression?
I mean,
they
it wasn't
were
on the
really,
field, so.
slow playing this.
That was the main thing, is like, how are they going to utilize this player? Not is this player good, but they have yet to utilize this player in any thought, in any way that warrants him being the 10th overall pick. And they kind of did that with Burden too. I still feel like they didn't do it enough with Burden
I agree.
at the end of the year, where they could have been on the season board. So weeks 1 through 8, he scored 17 total fantasy points. That was fewer than Jeremy Ruckert.
He
one of
was
those.
Also coming into the season hurt.
Yes. I think my point was saying Ben Johnson figured out something. And also, if you want to look at the games, when did it get figured out? It was week 9. It was against the Bengals. If there's a matchup to get to figure it out, it is the Bengals. And then from then on, you saw the targets per out run. You saw the production. You saw him essentially be their wide receiver 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Like, I want to make sure that the context for Colston Loveland is that the way he runs his routes, it was the second highest percentage of out wide routes of any tight end. So he's playing different than any other tight end out there.
The playoff ISO'd on the outside, runs an out route, scores a whatever 2-yard touchdown.
Was it a 2-point?
2-point conversion, I think.
2-point
Yeah.
conversion.
Okay, a 2-pointer. Sorry. But into the end zone regardless. It's like, how many tight ends in the league are getting an opportunity like that? Okay, you're out wide, you're by yourself, man. Like, that's Jimmy Graham stuff. That's very
Season
exciting.
on the line, had to have it, dial it up for a rookie tight end. I kind of think it tells you all you need to know about what Ben Johnson thinks of what he has in Colston Loveland. And like you talked about it, Kyle, with like the ability to line up out wide. Sometimes in fantasy, we think, okay, this is going to be great. But then you get this weird middle ground where it's like, you're not really a tight end and you're not really good enough to be a wide receiver. So now you're out there, but like you're not winning on routes. Mm-hmm. That is not the case with Colston Loveland. He is winning on these routes and they keep giving it to him in those situations. So he is the chess piece for Ben Johnson. He's going to unlock, I think, the true way Caleb puts it all together in year 3. Because year 1, you had the growing pains, inaccurate, taking a lot of sacks. Year 2, didn't take as many sacks, still inaccuracy issues, but the incredible moments from Caleb Williams. If you can just put the easy stuff around the incredible moments, like Caleb Williams can just be unbelievable next year.
Yeah.
And to me, the way that happens is Colston Loveland, the focal point of the offense moving forward. So yeah, I mean, Kyle, I know that you told everybody that Colston Loveland would be Mike Gesicki.
Yeah.
You know, the people, we don't forget that.
That's exactly how I said it.
That's exactly how you said it.
It's really
but no, these two guys, Warren and Loveland, I really, really am so excited about both these guys. I will say, I feel like Loveland's price, I don't know what it is in startups right now. I worry it gets to a point where it's like
he has to be the tight end 3.
That's
right?
what I'm saying. Like, if you want Loveland in a startup this offseason, get ready to spend up. And that makes you a little uneasy, but if you took him in a rookie draft last year, like, you've got to be just so excited.
What if
Matthew
Betz, what if I told you I've been to 3 straight title games in the Ballers main Dynasty League? 1, 2 of the 3. My starting
Don't tell us
tight end.
about your tight ends.
My starting tight end is Trey McBride, and Colston Loveland's just on my bench. He's just there, bro.
4-man league?
No, it is not.
It feels like it sometimes.
Man. So
Kyle was
scenario,
there. Kyle was in the championship game.
We had Tucker Kraft. He just didn't join us.
So if that is somebody out there that has like 2 elites, would you consider trading Trey McBride knowing that you have Loveland? If you could flip him for like an elite wide receiver or something?
I would say I would be open to it, but more than likely I would just keep the 2 of them of like lock up pure domination at the tight end position. Injuries aside, blah, blah, blah. But like lock up true pure domination for the next 4 or 5 years between those 2 guys. It's pretty good. But my running backs are Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, so no. Might need a young running back here at some point.
I'm going to give you a couple other contextual numbers for him because in the playoffs, it got turned up a notch. That won't show up on the stat sheet in the same way. 2 yards per out run in the regular season is 7th best among rookie tight ends over the last 15 years. And then the number that you felt it watching the Bears games all year was like the first 2 drives. Oh, okay. It was pretty good. What happened for the next 10 drives?
Yeah.
That's always what happened. And then in the fourth quarter, you saw all those crazy comebacks. 42% of his fantasy points came in the fourth quarter. That was among the highest of all tight ends. He had the most receiving yards in the fourth quarter of any tight end. And I only say that because year to year, fourth quarters fluctuate based on if your team's winning, a lot of times, guess what they're doing? They're kneeling the ball.
Right.
They're running out the clock. In other times, your team doesn't have to come back and they put up the points in the first and second quarter. Just saying those are all volatile. I don't think any of us are saying the Bears are going to repeat with the same number of fourth quarter comebacks or their defense is going to be as volatile. Their defense might be better and they might cause fewer turnovers. I know Betz and I have kind of talked about this off the air of like the Bears next year will have a first place schedule. They will have all the expectations. They'll probably have 9.5, 10 win total. And year to year, those things change. He's probably going to start earning targets in the first and second quarter differently. Like this year, his first free target share in the first quarter was 13%. That was like as good as Zacchaeus on the team. Eventually, they figured out how to use him.
Yeah, I mean, so you had 4 straight games to end the year with 10 or more targets. I mean, that's absurd. That is absurd.
Betz, any final thoughts?
I would just like to point out that he is the first rookie tight end ever in a playoff game to have 8+ catches and 100 yards. So, seems good.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Oronde Gadsden because there was a moment for about a month where you're like, this is the hottest thing. This is the best thing.
He burned real bright. The Herbros were coming out. They're like, Justin Herbert, he's got his new guy.
Week 6 through week 9. Oh, baby. What a time to be alive.
Just to give you a number, 377 receiving yards in those 4 games. That's the most ever for a tight end, a rookie tight end.
Crazy.
So, and that was really it. Like, the rest of the season, he had a little blip in week 17. But other than that, you were kind of chasing those performances, chasing the down the field targets. And he was just kind of used differently. Like a lot of his routes, 46% of them were posts, goes, or crossers. That's very different than a lot of other tight ends. It's a lot of down the field stuff and a lot of volatile things. I think chasing what that is next year or the year after is probably stupid. It's more of like, I have value if you have him, which I do have him on a couple teams. And if somebody thinks that he's a locked in top 10 tight end, I'm willing to trade him. It's just, I feel like we're always going to have that conversation with the Chargers. Is it Ladd, huge, Trey Harris coming in this year, Keenan's going to live forever? Like that's always going to be the conversation.
I think in fantasy, the conversation we're having with this stuff is like, you look back at the end of this next upcoming season when we have this conversation in a year, reviewing the top tight ends, the guys that are in the top that are the true difference makers are the guys that can either be first on their team in targets or second. Like, are you the offense? Can you be a true difference maker? Trey McBride, the Kelsey elite years. We think Loveland can get there. We think Warren can get there. It's hard to see it with Gadsden. Doesn't mean you won't have value, but you're just, like you said, Ladd's there, Quentin Johnston, they've got all these names. They'll get Amarian Hampton here back with a healthy offensive line. We know that they want to run the football. He feels like a guy that I would love to have on a roster and love to like draft as like a tight end 2 in startups and have my bench and feel totally fine plugging him in on a good matchup or something like that. But it's kind of hard to see him turning into like a true dominant difference maker. Although I will say, we kind of joked, like he did flash that ability for a small part of the season. So we know it's in there. Really good player, really athletic. So definitely a guy I want on my roster, but definitely not somebody that I'm like chasing in startups this offseason.
I don't have all the raw numbers in front of me, but just doing some, having watched the games and doing the retrospective box score hunting of when that 3-game stretch, it was 79 so the week before it happened, he had 8 targets. He was 7 for 68, before the big game, but 75% of the snaps, 79, 77, 80%. And then that dropped down to 52 the next week. And then it kind of fluctuated, but it really started to sit in more that high 50s, low 60, about averaging about that. And their offensive line was just so destroyed at this point that, I mean, are we getting blocking tight ends on the field more than Gadsden? Because that's just we have to have it. And so if the theory of both tackles come back, they're both healthy and ready to go, this offensive line becomes an elite unit, and Gadsden is then free to be a move tight end. I see an outcome where it is a possibility.
Yeah, their offense is hard to understand because I love Herbert, and I know Mike's been mentioning that. Like, I love Herbert as a thrower of the football. I think it looks beautiful.
Yes, he is very aesthetically pleasing if you like watching quarterbacks.
Yes, when it's right, it looks awesome. However, there are times where they turtled up and they said, hey, we're just going to run the ball because we literally cannot block anyone. And it'd be a Vidal game or whatever. But his role is just going to always feel volatile to me in terms of the type of player he is and the downfield targets. But it is nice to see. It's rare to see a tight end like this that was drafted in the 5th round all of a sudden have these kind of breakout games. So we're not saying trash him or anything. We're just saying if people are valuing him as a top 10 guy, it's okay to cash out.
Mm-hmm.
But, you got him off the scrap heap. Nobody was sitting around saying you have to draft Rondé Gadsden as a 5th round player. So I think the interesting names that I want to bring up, Gunnar Helm.
One real quick, Kyle. So you have a screenshot here. This is the values posted from Keep Trade Cut. They got Gadsden at 9? Like, is this ADP stuff?
This is why we use Keep Trade Cut as a proxy to what people might be feeling. I don't think value is the right way to look at this because it's people voting based on here's 3 players and here's where it ends up, and certain players are more popular. But yes, based on their aggregated rankings, he's a top 10 tight end.
Yeah,
but I would not rank him there.
I bring that up because behind him, one spot, George Kittle, which that now makes sense. Like, Kittle never tears his Achilles. There's no chance of him, even 32-year-old, I'm putting him behind Gadsden, but that one, okay. But then you have Jake Ferguson and Dalton Kincaid is like, really? I don't know that I would prefer Gadsden to those 2 guys. I'm just throwing it out.
Where do you think Gadsden's worth like a second?
I think so.
Maybe, like, if your target is the tight end position, like that's what you're really hoping to get with your 2nd round pick, then it's probably more savvy to go after a player who's actually already flashed on the NFL field versus going back into it might be a boat scenario. So in that, I can see it being the case, but other than that, I don't really want to spend a 2nd for Gadsden. A 3rd is perfectly fine, but 2 is a little rich.
I think the price is probably, you're in your draft, you're at the 207, 208, and you go, I think I'd rather have Gadsden than whatever I'm shooting for with these rookie picks. But that's probably where the price is. Gunnar Helm is a player at the end of the year, kind of flashed for the Titans, 4th round pick. He was targeted on 23% of his routes, which, not a ton of routes, 230, but like that's pretty good for a rookie tight end to be involved. Now, the offense was so bad that they needed pass catchers, but I think the bigger conversation is about Chigakonkwo being a free agent, and they're going to have a new offensive regime. We don't know who the offensive coordinator is, but I think he's one of those cheap, buy low, add in a trade type of players that has room to be like I hate saying it, but like there's room for players to be Dalton Schultz or be some of these other guys that kind of end up getting 90 to 100 targets.
For sure, yeah, and sometimes having those guys on your roster you don't show people, you're like, look at this sick roster I have. But those guys you can plug in the right matchup and get you the tight end 8 score on a week, and you move on and you play matchups. Like, that's kind of what I see with Gunnar Helm as a potential possibility moving forward. Now, he's a 4th round rookie. We're not sure on Cam Ward, you're right. They just hired a defensive-minded head coach. We'll see. But as like a cheap startup piece to acquire, or if you have him on a roster, like, definitely do not cut this guy. Snag him or keep him as like your tight end 2 or 3 and kind of see what happens. He's a fun guy to keep. And there's some leagues too that you can do like taxi squads for year 1 and year 2 players. Perfect guy to have on the end of your bench.
All right, Mason Taylor.
Now we're talking.
We joke about not forcing missed tackles. He also had the 2nd worst drop rate among all tight ends. So Mason, you're not helping your cause, buddy.
That's not good.
However, incredibly young. He saw 63 targets. Is there room for this guy to end up, have room? Possibly. I'll say that. I'll throw it out there.
Yeah,
it's possible.
What is the depth chart? Garrett Wilson,
A.D. Mitchell.
Garrett Wilson sealed his fate when he took all the money. Yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, I guess Adonai Mitchell is the guy. We had that weird late surge of A.D. Mitchell and not Meacham.
John Mechie.
Mechie. That's Robert Meacham. That is not the right name.
You said meat.
Oh, no, I did not. So, when it comes to players like Mason Taylor, that's where I'm looking of, is there any way that this depth chart shakes out that this person can rise to be the number 2 target earner? If that is a resounding no, then I'm completely out. If I can tell myself that story and I can sort of believe it every once in a while on certain days, then okay, now there's value. I'll keep him on my bench.
It's interesting. His draft capital, he was taken in second round, 40th overall. And then Terrence Ferguson, these guys were taken ahead of Fan, and Ferguson was 46 overall, and he was like the 4th tight end on his own depth chart. He had all the deep targets. Like, he had the most in the NFL of any tight end, 20-plus air yard targets. But most of them aren't catchable. I don't know. He's a fun name.
I think he's kind of interesting of, like, what did the Rams, man, this is just another, tip of the cap to Sean McVay, where he's always trying to stay ahead of things. All of a sudden, Sean McVay, who was the king of the 11 personnel, right? I mean, we had the Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and then whoever
Brandon Cooks for a little bit.
Yeah, whoever their third guy was at the time, that they were the high flyers, and now they have flipped that on their head, and their tight ends are getting a whole bunch of targets. So Ferguson is, I don't know. I think he's more interesting than Mason Taylor. Like, what is Tyler Higbee still on this roster next year? Like, does it get condensed to Parkinson and Ferguson? I don't know.
Yeah, so looking right now at Spotrac, they have Higbee as a void year in his deal currently, so they could bring him back if they want to. We'll see. But outside of that, obviously, if they do bring him back, Higbee's on a 1-year deal this year, or he's gone. Davis Allen is gone after this year, and so is Colby Parkinson. So I think Ferguson's my favorite of this kind of secondary group, cost-adjusted piece to go get, unless he comes out this weekend and blows up and has an amazing game, and then the cat's out of the bag. But he's has the athletic profile. Remember, he crushed the combine. He was a big riser in that second-round NFL draft pick. Didn't do a ton his rookie year, but you kind of understand why. Missed time for injury too. So he's one of those guys that I think has the best, if everything hits, scenario for him out of him, Taylor, Gunnar Helm, Gadsden types. Like, I think Ferguson for me is my favorite cost-adjusted piece to go get right now.
And you saw it in the playoff game. They had a couple of shots deep where they were designed deep targets.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out is Ferguson's final 2 games of the regular season, he, it worked out for fantasy because he scored in both, but 4 targets in both of those games, gets hurt, misses some time, and then he plays in that Chicago game that just happened, and he had 5 targets. 1 for 9, like, that's the type of stuff you're trying to find, where there's an imbalance of cost, right? Of people would point, he had 1 catch for 19 yards. Look a little deeper than that. He had 5 targets, and Kyle, you say he had some deep shots called up for him. So, how are they actually using that player? Maybe it didn't connect right there. Because if it connects, then the cost of Terrence Ferguson is, we're not talking about him like that in just literally 1 game. So he's interesting to me.
Sean McVay's funny because his first ever draft pick in the second round was Gerald Everett.
That's
Remember,
right.
For years we were trying to make that happen, and then he takes Ferguson here. It's an interesting draft cost for a player that fits a very specific role for the team, deep threat tight end, while they also have a couple others. And then over time they can just figure that out because we kind of trust Sean McVay. That's going to do it for this episode. Over the next month, we will be talking all things rookies, prospects, getting you ready for Super Bowl Sunday launch of the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. We'll talk to you again soon.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.